Do you want your dog to come when called every time you call them? Today, I'm going to show you our foolproof methods. If you follow all of the tips in this video, I guarantee they're going to work. The key is to follow every single one of these tips. You can't pick and choose. We're saving the best one for last. It's crucial and it ties absolutely everything together. I know you want your dog to listen off leash, but you have to start on leash. That's where we always start. It's the beginning. You have to make sure your dog understands the command properly. Dash, stay. We'll generally start from a stay command. I'm going to put him in a stay. I'm going to say his name and I'm going to call him to me. Dash, come. Good boy. Sit. And we always teach a sit when they get to us. Really important. That's what finishes the command. We want to make sure when they get there, their attention's on us and that they don't just come, say hi, and take off running. When you're training, you need to be excited. We don't use a lot of treats. There's nothing terrible about it, but when you start with treats, you generally have to use treats for a really long time, and it's tough to wean the dog off of them. We use praise. So our positive reinforcement is praise, telling the dog they're a good boy. If your dog doesn't like praise from you, that's an issue, right? Your dog should love you, they should love praise. That's what we're using. Your voice needs to reflect that. I don't want to see you telling your dog, Dash, come. He's not going to listen, right? You need excitement. So when I call the dog, it's always going to sound like this. Dash, come. Sit. Good boy. Lots of praise. We can lower that praise down a little bit through time, but your voice needs to convey energy. Once things are going well on leash, we move to a long line. This is a very important step. You can't go from on leash to off leash and just hope for success. You need a tool to control your dog. That's what the long line does for you. Let me show you what a correction looks like. So your dog isn't going to listen perfectly every single time. So imagine I'm going to show you the easiest situation possible. Imagine he's in a stay and I call him to me and he ignores me. So let's say I said his name, I said come, and he just stares at me blankly and I know he knows what the command is and he's just choosing not to listen. The first thing I do is tell him no. I'm marking the bad behavior. I'm saying this is what I don't like. I would then walk all the way to him. I would grab the long line, and as I back up, I'm going to give 3 tugs. I'm not going to tug here because he's done nothing wrong, but I would tug and I would tell him come, come, and sit. So 1 tug for come, another tug for come, and a 3rd come for sit, with the idea being I'm reinforcing what I want. So the correction I just showed you was the easiest situation possible, right? Your dog's in a sit stay and he just stays there and doesn't leave. That's not real life, so you need to know what to do in other scenarios. So let's talk through a couple of them. Generally speaking, your dog's going to do one of 2 things. They're either going to ignore you and casually walk off, or they're going to run from you. Let's talk about both of them. So imagine that the dog was right here, and I were to call him to me, and he doesn't listen. And let's say he ends up just 10 feet over that way. The second I see he's not listening, I mark it with a no immediately. So he starts walking off, I tell him no. I would go over here to get him, but now when I get there, I don't care that he started there, and I don't care that I started there. All of that is 100% irrelevant. Come is about me. It's about coming to me. So I'd pick up the leash here, and now I would back up and tell him, come, come, sit. Just like that. Don't worry about where anyone started. Now, think about if they ran from you. So this is what the long line's for. Imagine he's got the long line on. I tell him to come, and he bolts. And he ends up doing circles around me for a while, playing catch me if you can. The idea is the long line is long enough that I can get to it and I can step on it. I would step on the line. When he hits the end of it, I would tell him a sharp no immediately. That serves as my correction. And let's say he now ended up 20 feet over this way. That's where I go. So I would walk to him way over here. When I get there, I forget about where he started. I don't care where he ran. I don't care where I was. Once again, all of that's irrelevant. Wherever I get to him, I pick up my line. I get real close to the collar and I would tell him, come, come, sit. If you had to give your dog a correction and let's say they ran from you, and I just showed you how we address that. Let's say they were racing around the yard, ignoring you completely. You step on your long line, you tell them no right when they hit the end of it. You go get them, you give your perfect correction, you tell them come, come, sit. You're so proud of yourself. You walk inside feeling like job well done. You did probably 80% of it, but you didn't do the last 20%. What you need to do is try it again. So there, your dog never came when called in the yard, right? And you took him inside, you never had any success. So what I would do is immediately tell the dog free, let him go back to the yard and call them again. I don't care if this takes you 2, 3, 4, 5 times, it doesn't matter. Work until you have success. Otherwise, every single time you call your dog in from the yard, you're probably gonna have to play catch me if you can. What I just explained is huge. It's important, but it's not our most important tip. That's coming a little bit later and it's gonna tie everything together nicely. Hey, pal. If you're enjoying this video, please take the time to like it. YouTube sees that, they track it, hey, good boy. And that really does help get our video in front of more people. But he's getting bored, so back to training. Now we have the dog on a long line and he's free. He's no longer in a stay, so he's hanging out over there with his ball. He's allowed to do whatever it is he wants to. I'm gonna go ahead and call him. think through what I'm gonna do. Test yourself. If he listens, I'm going to praise him all the way in. If he ignores me, I would mark it with a no and go get him. He's my dog, so let's hope he doesn't ignore me. Dash, come. Good boy. Sit. So that was perfect. Good boy. Free. If he didn't do well, I would tell him no. I would go get him and issue that correction. Once a dog is doing well on their long line, a lot of times we graduate to an e-collar. So we use Dogtra. It's a great brand. There's other great brands as well. People hear e-collar and they think about corrections, they think about pain, they think about a lot of negative things. That's not what e-collars are about. The first thing we do is we use a vibration, the pager function. That replaces the word come. So it's not a threat. It's not meant to be, hey, you're about to get in trouble. It's praise. So it catches the dog's attention. So you'll see in a moment, we put an e-collar on Dash. When I call him, I'm gonna push the vibration button, the pager, and he knows that means to come over to me and get his praise when he gets there. So let me show you what that looks like. Dash is no longer in a command. He's free right now, but he has his e-collar on, so he can do whatever it is he wants. He's a little bit tired right now. It's hot out and we've been playing. What I'm gonna do in a moment is I'm gonna use the pager button. All that does is it vibrates, it catches the dog's attention. Every dog's different. Some dogs are nervous when they first feel the vibration. Some don't seem to feel it, but the majority of dogs, it catches their attention very quickly. We pair it with their name along with the come command. So when you're teaching a new dog this, what you would do is you would say their name. So I would say Dash, and as I say come, I would push the pager. He knows what it means, so I don't need to call him, but I'll show you what it looks like with a new dog. So he's free. Out of nowhere, I might say, you can see he's already looking at me and coming over because he's in training mode. Hey, I would say his name, Dash, come, sit, good boy, free. So that was it. When I said come, I pushed the vibration button, and I'm gonna go ahead and do it again. This time I'm not gonna call him, I'm just gonna push the vibration button, and you can see he runs over and he sits because he knows what it means, because time after time I've called him along with the vibration. I just showed you what the vibration or pager looks like, but now let's talk about how to correct with an e-collar. So what the e-collar is going to do is it's gonna replace me having to walk to the dog and give that correction, come, come, sit. E-collars are highly adjustable, so a Dogtra goes from 0 to 127. Dash's working level is about a 20. A 20 feels like a little pinch. It's a very light correction. Never put this on your dog without trying it on yourself first, and you'll see a 15 to a 20 you're hardly gonna feel. It's just meant to catch their attention. But now all I would do, if I called him and he ignored me, I would still tell him no, but then on the side of the collar is a correction button. I would push that as I tell him no. So I would call him to me. If he ignored me completely, I would say no with the correction, and then in theory, he would run to me and sit when he gets there. If he didn't, I would walk to him and gently grab kind of by the collar, not the e-collar, whatever their normal collar is they have on, and I would tell him, come, come, sit. If you're afraid your dog would run from you in that scenario, you're not ready to be off leash with an e-collar, and you might have to work with a long line and e-collar together for a while until you trust your dog. Now we have the e-collar off and it's playtime. He's chasing his stick, he's having fun. He's not a command, he's in no command right now. He's able to do what he wants to. When I call him, he should listen. Here, he has no e-collar, no long line, so you don't do this until you trust your dog. Think through what you would do if he ignored you. You would tell him no. You would go right to him to correct him, and you would back up and you would tell him, come, come, sit. And of course, if they listen, you would praise them. Dash, come, good boy, sit, good boy, free. The tip I mentioned at the beginning of this video sounds really simple, and it's be 100% consistent. So take everything I did in this video and be consistent with it. If you're 95% consistent, that's not very good. What that means is 5% of the time you're letting your dog get away with something, they're gonna figure out really quickly that they don't need to listen. These corrections are not harsh, they're not a huge deterrent. So think about those little corrections I gave on the leash, or think about the e-collar stim level that you're gonna try in yourself before you ever use it on your dog. These are not intense corrections. They don't scare the dog, they don't intimidate the dog, they break the dog's focus. That's all they're really doing. So if your dog figures out, sometimes you're not gonna get them. Sometimes you're gonna allow them to run around the yard and you're gonna call them and just say, 6 a.m., whatever, I don't wanna deal with you. Once they figure that out, you're gonna have a dog who strategically ignores you. Whenever they feel like it, whenever they're in that scenario, they're going to ignore you. You have to be 100% consistent. There's a difference between being proactive and reactive. So a reactive trainer would just wait until they really needed their dog or their dog was being bad, and then they would call them right then. Being proactive means you do this on your terms. So if you're a night owl and you've been up late and it's now 6 a.m. and you're exhausted, maybe you don't call your dog right now. Maybe you don't let him in the yard and call them. Work at 10 o'clock at night. Work on your time. If you're a morning person and it's 6 a.m., that sounds like a great time to train your dog. Point is, you should set up little training sessions when you want to. So if your dog's not doing well in the yard, pick a time that you feel like working, put them in the yard and train until you have success. Following up on what I just said, if there's a time you really don't feel like going after your dog to correct them if they don't listen. So picture you're on the couch, you've got your sliding door open, they're in the backyard running around. If you think, hey, if I call him, he might not come right now and I don't want to get up, I'll give you a tip. Don't call your dog. The worst thing you can do is call your dog right there, have them not listen, and have the dog realize, oh, hey, when he's on the couch, he's lazy and he's not going to come get me. Pretty soon your dog is never going to come to you when you're laying there on the couch. Only work when you're willing to follow your training 100%. If you follow these tips, I guarantee your dog is going to listen off leash. You just have to be consistent and follow every single one of these tips. Get out there, work hard, and enjoy your dog. Thanks for watching.